Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Databricks CMO, Schultz.
Good morning. Super excited to see everyone here. Good morning and welcome. Welcome to San Francisco. Welcome to Data and AI Summit. And welcome to our first ever Marketing Data and AI Leader Forum. Really excited that you could all be here, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend time with us. I thought I'd just kick it off by spending a couple minutes on why we're doing this and what to expect from now until noon in terms of the content. So we decided to kind of do this because, well, actually, before I do that, sorry, I forgot. I wanted to actually see who's in the room, just get a little bit of a sense, because just looking at the registration for the event and being at the welcome reception last night, it seems there's kind of a mix of people who work in marketing and people who don't work in marketing but work with marketing, either in IT or other departments that support marketing. So just quick show of hands is how many people work in the marketing department? Okay, so yeah, it's about a little over half, it's about 60-40 maybe. And then I was also just curious, we have kind of an interesting mix, I think, of B2B companies and also B2C, consumer-facing companies across media, CPG, retail, et cetera. How many folks in the room work for B2C companies, consumer-facing companies? Okay, also about even split. Okay, cool, thank you. That's helpful to know. Yeah, I wanted to talk about why we're all here, first of all. We see just this data and AI explosion has kind of done a couple of things as it relates to marketing. One is marketing's kind of at a crossroads of decision-making around which technologies to adopt, how to unify your data to make more sense of it, to get more value out of it, but also where to embrace AI and where to adopt it, et cetera. But even more so, we've actually seen, and we've experienced this a little bit ourselves even inside of Databricks, we actually have seen that marketing departments are a lot of times at the forefront of it. They're actually some of the most rapid adopters of unifying data, of actually getting a lot of value out of analytics and self-service analytics, and really even innovating and investing with newer technologies like Gen AI and even classic AI, which we'll talk about both later. And so we see, I used to think, especially when just a few years ago, we were a pretty small startup, and I used to think, oh, it's probably so different when we're talking across B2B, like a small enterprise tech startup, and a B2C company like a PetSmart, who will be on stage here soon presenting, Bradley. And actually, the more we've kind of engaged in these discussions as people increasingly want to talk to us about what does data intelligence for marketing look like, and how would I go about unifying my data, and how can I have a reasonable strategy for where it makes sense to adopt AI and stuff. We've just kind of seen that there are a lot of commonalities, actually. And there's some differences, of course, in consumer-facing world with the channels and maybe size of audience and what have you. But there's still some commonality around how do I break down my data silos? I've got data all over the place, and how do I approach unifying that? And how do I go about enabling self-service analytics and empowering my teams to try new things with AI? And also, how do I run more efficient campaigns? Now, campaigns might mean different things to different companies, but we're all trying to get there to how do we run more effective, more dynamic and more efficient campaigns. So those are just some of the commonalities we see. And really what's in store for the next 3 hours is just some talks you'll hear from a lot of our customers and from partners. We'll have consumer-facing companies, but also I'll come up in a little bit and host a tech CMO panel. And we're really just here to share best practices and kind of learn from each other. So that's kind of what's in store for the morning. And with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our keynote speaker. Dan Morris actually, he was a customer of Databricks for 5 years, where he was a VP of data platform at Viacom, and he actually keynoted this entire conference in 2017 on the main stage at Data and AI Summit, which back then was called Spark Summit. And now he leads our go-to-market for all marketing solutions. So please welcome Dan Morris to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're so glad to have you here at our first ever Marketing, Data, and AI Leaders Forum. We have a jam-packed agenda for you, everything from thought leadership, guided discussions, lessons from the trenches, and so much more. For those that I haven't met, my name is Dan Morris. I lead go-to-market for marketing solutions here at Databricks. And one of the things I love about my role is really that I have the good fortune of working with brands across every industry across the globe as they work to use Databricks to accelerate their marketing outcomes. And when we talk about these outcomes, they truly span the entirety of marketing, whether it's collecting and unifying their customer data to unlock insights or deliver exceptional experiences, managing the campaign lifecycle, whether it's generating briefs with AI or optimizing campaigns with media mix modeling, and of course, building and protecting brand equity for the long term. When we work with marketing leaders and marketing teams, really across all these different business outcomes, there's some trends that we tend to hear time and time again. We need to be hyper-personalizing experiences across all channels and all touch points, and we need to do this in a way that gives us consistency with brand tone and brand voice. When it comes to campaigns, we need to be executing with precision, with science. We need to ensure that we're maximizing return on ad spend and driving lifetime value. And when it comes to internal, we need to be doubling down on self-service, whether it's democratizing access to insights or ensuring that our marketing teams are able to create and activate audience segments on demand and independently. And we need to be able to do all of this at scale and with AI. And while the North Star is clear, what we find is that there's a number of roadblocks that companies typically face. Data is siloed. Internally, it might be due to organization silos. External, your data might exist in marketing tools that are disconnected from your data estate. And all of this prevents your ability to create those unified views of your customers, your campaigns. And because you don't have that unified view, the idea of self-service becomes elusive. Your marketing teams are reliant on technical folks to help them with insights or even create audience segments. And so for your marketers, what this means is slower time to insight, slower time to action. And for your technical teams, it means not working on other activities that might be higher value add. And the same goes for campaigns. Without those unified views of the customers and the campaigns, your campaigns end up being inefficient and ultimately static. You're unable to adapt to consumer behavior. And so when we talk to companies about all of these areas and they're kind of in this journey, what we're hearing over the past 12 months more than anything is the status quo is just not working, right? The cost of acquisition is going up. It's up 60% over the past 5 years. Marketing budgets are shrinking, so down from 11% a few years ago to just the high sevens of total company revenue. And the customer experience, as we know it, is completely changing. And so ultimately what's needed is a platform that gives you the speed and the agility to overcome all of these challenges. And so you need a platform that enables you to unify your data, your AI, your consent, and ultimately build out those customer profiles, that single view of the customer and campaigns. You need a unified layer for governance so that you can effectively scale self-service across your enterprise. And you need a platform that can support all of your use cases from BI to AI, infused with data intelligence so that every answer you get is grounded in the semantics of your business. But it doesn't stop there. At Databricks, when we talk about data intelligence for marketing, we firmly believe that the best way to accelerate marketing outcomes is through the combination of the Databricks data intelligence platform and the marketing ecosystem. And what's amazing about this model is that it ensures that all personas get to use tools that are purpose-built for them, all while working off of a single source of data, a unified layer of governance, and data intelligence available for all, no matter where you do your best work. So through Databricks, your engineers get everything they need to collect and unify data. Your scientists get everything that they need, whether it's to build propensity models or calculate lifetime value. Your analysts get a nice, easy-to-use SQL interface where you can even leverage Gen AI so they can do as much deep analyses as needed. And even your marketing leaders get a natural language interface using Genie where they're able to ask their hardest questions and get answers like that. Likewise, your marketers get tools that are purpose-built for them through the marketing ecosystem. And as I mentioned, this all connects to a unified unified data, unified governance, and data intelligence for all, no matter where you do your best work. And when we talk about the ecosystem, well, this is just a subset of the partners that we work with. Our goal is really to make sure that no matter what your favorite tools are, you can connect directly to Databricks. And we've been actively investing in this area, and we will continue to do so over the next coming months. And what's amazing about this is that ultimately, once you have this unified source of data, you're able to accelerate everything related to self-service. You can move to a model where you have dashboards that you might be using to monitor executive level for campaigns. You could immediately have follow-up questions, go directly into Genie, again, ask your hardest questions, and have insights just like that. And when it comes to campaigns, you move to a model that is dynamic. So you move to a model where marketers strategically set the direction. What is the goal, such as purchases? What are the guardrails, such as the time of day that you're allowed to deliver messages? What are the creative that we can use, whether it's copy or images? All of this is harnessed by the AI. The AI will help explore the space and figure out what works best for whom, when, and where. And we see amazing results across all companies where when you're able to really unify your data, you're able to scale self-service, you're able to move to dynamic campaigns. What we're actually seeing is this rise of what we at Databricks refer to as the 10x marketer. It's this idea that the marketers are able to now operate at a level of scale and effectiveness that was never before thought possible. And you're going to hear from a number of them today. And so with that, I'm super excited to kick off the agenda for today. Next up, we're going to have Bradley Bryer from PetSmart. David Geisinger will follow up from Deloitte to talk to us about the future of marketing. We'll then have Rick, our CMO, come back up and do a panel with tech CMOs. Following that, we'll have a networking break for 20 minutes so everyone can chat and kind of meet each other. And after the networking break, we'll have Grant Race from T-Mobile, Julie Long from Grammarly. We'll have a panel on personalization. And then to close out the day, something we've received a lot of requests on, our own Liz Dobbs from Databricks will come up and share more about our own marketing journey at Databricks. And so with that, I'd like to invite Bradley from PetSmart up on the stage.
Thank you. Thanks, Dobbs. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, and really excited to take you through some of the journey that PetSmart has been on as it relates to AI. There's a lot of different ways that companies and businesses and marketing teams are using AI, some for efficiency, some for content creation. But I want to talk today about how we're thinking about using AI to drive growth in our business. That was a really important thing that we set out to do, was to really think about how we use this technology and all the data that we have in order to drive growth in our business. I've been talking about personalization for my entire career. And it always seems like it's something that we've wanted to do, and we've maybe done it over here or over there, but we've struggled to really do it well, in my opinion. It's been hard to scale. It's been hard to have repeatability. It's been hard to stay committed to it. At the same time, we're seeing decreasing engagement. People are less engaged in marketing. In the pet industry, there is more spending in marketing than ever before. And so there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise that's happening. But I truly believe that we are now actually at a time that is really exciting, where that I really actually believe that AI is going to help us achieve this goal of actually delivering personalization, delivering it well for millions of customers, and doing it every single day. And I want to take you a little bit on that journey and why I see so much promise in this. We have 75 million members in our Treats Rewards loyalty program. 9 out of 10 of our transactions are tied to a loyalty member, and we've got years of data. So we're sitting on all sorts of data about our customers, and we really view it as a responsibility, an obligation to use all of this data to better serve our customers. And we believe, of course, if you serve your customer well, you give them good personalized experiences, so too your business will follow. And they tell us a lot, right? They tell us about their pets. They tell us about their birthdays and their gotcha days. We know about the foods that they're eating. But we also infer a lot about our customers. We use data to infer things like our data science team predicting when's the next time that someone needs to replenish food for their cat or for their dog. We infer things about their propensity to do certain behaviors or engage in certain parts of our business. And so it's with all of that data, that we have this responsibility to really think about how we offer a more personalized experience. In the context of marketing engagement being down, this need to sort of break through and capture the customer with more timely and relevant information, we also have an ambition for growth. I'm sure many of you work in businesses where growth is part of the DNA and really required to continue being successful. And one of the areas of growth in our business that we see is our grooming business. People coming in to get a haircut for their dog, a bath, a nail trim. We do all sorts of things to help your dog come out looking really awesome. And our ambition here is also a differentiator for us. Our online competition can't give this service to their customers. And so people trust us caring for their pets. So a big business opportunity for us. In our 1,700 locations across North America, we have a salon in almost every single location. And when you drop off your pet and let them stay with us for 2 hours, have them groomed, bathed, whatever it might be, that's a high degree of trust. And what we find is that this customer is significantly more loyal. They make more trips, they spend more, and there's a certain emotional loyalty to entrusting someone to care for your pet. And so for that reason, this is a really valuable customer to us. This is someone that we really want to engage with because we know that they will have that long-term emotional loyalty. So what did we do? Well, we have 2 really great technologies. We have all of our underlying data. We have Databricks. We have High Touch. All of this came together and we said, humans in our marketing department have for a very long time been trying to persuade people to try our salon, to try and bring their dog in for a bath or a groom or a haircut or wherever it might be. And the humans have been successful. This is not to say that our marketing department wasn't successfully converting people to try our salon. But we had a belief that the human capacity was only so much, and that we could bring to our humans, our marketers, AI solutions that helped them do even greater things with this technology. And so what we did was we did a pilot using AI, and really, we had all the data, we had these great technology tools, but we had to think differently as people as to how we were going to actually do this. One of the biggest things that we learned along the way was that, everything's kind of in our head. Right? We really had to focus on a couple of things. One is, not thinking of the marketing calendar and the campaign launch and what offers and the creative being perfect head to toe. I mean, all the things that are in a classic marketer's toolkit, we kind of had to set that aside and say, let's actually focus on metadata. We need really good metadata about this. We really need a variety of content. You have to go into it with a lot of things to try, a lot of things to test out. We need a variety of offers. We need a variety of metrics and outcomes. We need guardrails. And so we really, in the early days, had to really think about what were the right ingredients that were going to be very different from how we traditionally approached a campaign like this. And so, look, we have millions of customers who every year come in, they buy dog food from us, and they don't step foot into our salon. So they've given us this really key signal, right, that they have a dog in their household. And all dogs need grooming, whether it's just a bath, whether it's an actual haircut, or just to have your nails trimmed. They all have this need. And so we see a huge value in converting our customers from just buying dog food or buying dog toys or the stuff that's in the front of our store to coming into our salon. Because as I said earlier, we know that customer, they trust us, they will be more loyal once they've had this experience. And so that was really what we were asking the AI technology to do, was to convert more people from just shopping dog food, just giving us a signal that they have a dog, to actually trialing our salons. And this slide, it really oversimplifies it, because the reality is that yes, these are 3 customers with a very different experiment. But what the AI is doing in the background, right, is it's actually taking all of our content, all of our copy, all of our offers, and it's assembling thousands of little tests along the way to figure out what works, to figure out how to break through and connect with that customer in a way that has them raise their hand and say, hey, yeah, I am interested in trying out your salon. But it does other things, right? Things that, oftentimes a human isn't thinking about. It's about what's the right day of week, what's the right time of day, what's the right channel, what's the right frequency or cadence that we're going to communicate with the customer. It's a high-stakes thing when you're running this as a human, because you had maybe 2 or 3 moments during the month to get your communication out, to try and convert that customer, and you waited, and you had a certain level of activity that you were happy with. The AI is doing this over and over every single day. And as a marketer, a lot of times you launch a campaign in retail on a Friday or a Thursday because you're going into the weekend. Well, we actually learned that converting customers to book salon appointments, it's much more concentrated early in the week. Call it Monday or Tuesday. And that's not something that we would have naturally learned without the ability to just have this velocity of testing going on behind the scenes, trying out so many different combinations of things that are happening. And so that was a really exciting learning that came by managing metadata, having content, setting guardrails, and then really reading results to sort of improve along the way. And we drove a lift, right? This number, 22%, it probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but here's what I'll say. When you have a business where you have millions of customers that buy dog food from you but don't trial your services business, this is a very meaningful impact on our business. I actually don't need to achieve 100% lifts. In some use cases, a 4 or 5% lift at our scale is very meaningful in what we deliver to our business. And what I found so interesting on this journey was, we started out, we've been doing this for years. We have a very strong baseline of what we expect to drive in converting these types of customers. And when we launched the pilot, first couple of weeks, it was basically sitting at the baseline. And we test this very rigorously. We take a test group, we take a holdout group, people who qualify for the communications but do not get them. We really rigorously look at what the baseline is and compare these behaviors. But after about 2 weeks, you started to see the lift grow. And this is when I really had in my mind, I said, this is not hype anymore. This is real. This is the moment where I realized that AI can truly play a transformative role in how marketers more effectively communicate with their customers and in turn have a real impact on their business. So we were really happy with this. We've now, and I'll give a little plug for my afternoon talk at 5:20 today. We're going to talk about some of the other use cases that we've deployed. But we give it a pretty broad challenge, pretty clear KPI, a lot of different content and offers, and then it goes and it does the work. The other observations that we've had are creative. Who would have thought? We often, in these 2 simple iterations, one of them is talking about the fur flying around the salon. Well, it turns out customers don't care if the fur is flying around the salon. They do care about all of the fur and hair that is in their house. And so it's not like an A/B test where it's like you declare a winner and then that is the golden rule going forward. This learning goes back to the creative to say, hey, this is the consumer sentiment that we need to tap into more often. Come back to me with 10 different ways of saying this. You can even see here, we didn't really even vary the imagery very much. Come back to me with 10 iterations when you're going into a photo shoot or you're going to create a commercial on television. Think about these learnings because it will make the marketing more effective overall if we can take these learnings. So again, I caution people, an A/B test or just one single insight is sort of antithetical to what AI is. But the continuous learning and being able to pull out those little things that can inform your media buying, your television, is a very, very meaningful impact that we're finding as we go along. I'll end with, this is Blue, and he's my 3-year-old corgi. And Blue is really why I get up every single day, both for my family, but also in my job, is that we really are here for all of the pets and all of the people that have pets and love pets in their household. And our goal is really to become and to be the favorite pet retailer, to stand above all, and that people come to us because we are there for their pets. We help them experience more joy with their pets. And I'll say it's been a long ambition for marketers to have a whole set of data, really rich set of data to use on their customers. Being able to match that up to more effective communications, right, that they really cut through, that really resonate, that really connect with the consumer. And then third, actually have a real impact on the business. Have a seat at that table with P&L owners where you can sit and say, here are the actions that we've taken, and here are the results that we're driving. And so in doing those three things, using the data better, we've always been promising that, but maybe not always delivering on it, having more effective marketing communications, and then driving business outcomes, those are the three things that I truly believe AI will enable. And for us, that's going to let us bring joy to more pets, to more households with pets, and that's why we're here. So thank you for your time this morning, and enjoy the conference.
Please welcome to the stage the head of marketing technologies for Deloitte, David Geisinger.
Good morning, everybody. Very small stage up here, so they warned me, since I'm a wanderer, that the likelihood of me falling off was going to be pretty great. I also learned that I need to have more puppies in my slides. Apparently, I'm a little short on dogs and corgis and Furminators in my slides, but over the next 15 minutes, you are either going to leave this presentation completely invigorated and excited and passionate about the change and the evolution as marketers, or you are going to be completely unfulfilled. And the reason you may be unfulfilled is that the topics that we're going to talk about today are the most commonly discussed topics, the things that are on top of everybody's minds, and admittedly are a 15-hour conversation, not a 15-minute conversation. But I will spare you the 15 hours. I know you have lots of other things to focus on. So let's get into it here. Let's see. The future of marketing, very bold statement. What you'll also notice is how many of you work in consulting or have worked with Deloitte before? Oh, great. How many of you, I was going to say are my competitors, but it's okay. You'll all learn something, hopefully, so will I. This is a very typical consultant slide deck, and you'll know why in a second. Unlike most slide decks that have thousands of words in 6-point font, I decided to go for very large font and very few words. So you'll have to bear with me here, as it's a little outside a traditional Deloitte or consulting type of slide deck. Just by point of introduction, again, David Geisinger. I lead all of marketing technology and operations for Deloitte across sector. So though I've spent some time, and I was talking to Bradley before, working in retail and consumer, I spend most of my personal time in life sciences and healthcare, so a lot of time in regulated industries, but are seeing just a tremendous amount of change. So, big, bold question to start the conversation. Are marketers still needed? Right, I'm seeing some head nods here in the room, probably a lot of yeses. I'm guessing you're all marketers, so that's probably why you're nodding your head. The answer is absolutely, right? We are at a critical point in our society, in our evolution of marketers, where machines are dominating the conversation, are dominating the newsreels, are dominating everything about what we talk about and what we think about every single day. But those conversations are in large part due to the fact that we need to incorporate technology into the way we work rather than replace the way we work or replace the people that we work in. So much of the conversation today will be around how do we work together with technology to create the next evolution in the future of marketing. That truthfully, we're at a point in this world, in this society, in this evolution of marketing that we haven't seen for decades, probably longer. And you're all part of this next generation and this next evolution, which will be hugely important to the success of not only you as individuals, but your businesses and most importantly, the customers that you serve. Will technology and agentic system replace human marketers? I said the short answer is no. Will they complement those marketers? Absolutely. Now, just show of hands, how many of you have had a conversation about agentic or Gen AI, today is what, Tuesday? In the last 24 hours, this week? Pretty much everybody. My daughter graduated high school on Sunday. And in the preliminary speeches, when the principal gets up and the superintendent gets up and somebody from the school committee gets up and the valedictorian gets up, and you have all these long speeches about how you're going to go on to do great things, and you've made it this far, and congratulations, all 13 years of school, right? These are 18-year-olds. Wow, they made it 18 years. What an accomplishment. ChatGPT was mentioned no less than 10 times in that first 45 minutes. I overheard a conversation earlier about somebody talking about using AI and chat as part of their schooling. And in these speeches, half the people we're talking about don't use ChatGPT at all, right? And the other half were discussing how they use ChatGPT to help write their speech. So I thought that was a perfect example of the conversations that we're having right now, which is when and where do we use these technologies for the betterment of the programs, of the communications, of the experiences, of the marketing that we're trying to create? Is it something that will replace all the tasks of a marketer, or is it something that will be used in concert with a marketer? Because at the end of the day, as marketers, it's not just about writing words and putting them on a piece of paper. There's a couple themes that you're going to hear me talk about through the rest of this presentation, which is empathy, creative thinking, experience, the human element, the cultural element. Technology can't get all those things across, right? And so without that level of creativity, without that level of human interaction, human touch, technology is only a small piece of the overall equation. Could your job be done by an algorithm? I do not want to see a show of hands, although funny comment, I was reviewing this with our risk department, and somebody in risk said, who would even consider answering yes to this question? So I don't want to know the answer. But the reality is it doesn't really matter what your answer is. The reality is there should be another word in there. Can your job be done well by an algorithm? And the short answer is probably not. And again, it's not about replacing us as marketers. It's about how do we use technology to drive advantage in the marketplace, to drive advantage in the experiences in partnership. Which brings us to our own little identity crisis, which, as marketers, I think there's not a month, a week, a year that goes by where we're not faced with some level of identity crisis in terms of what we say, how we say it, where we say it, who we say it to. But there's this shift from creative intuition to this idea of data precision. And so I go back to this concept of more data and less human touch, right? Creative intuition, hugely important. Right? It's what drives us as human beings, right? The follow the heart, not just the head. Now, I'm a data guy, actually. My creativity goes as far as drawing stick figures, right? That's about the extent of my artistry. And I rely very heavily on the data. But I also recognize that data historically has been crafted or shaped to tell the story that individuals want to tell. How often do we find silos of data in organizations where people manipulate that data by hand in order to tell the business case or business story that they want to tell? That's why the work that we do and our clients do with Databricks is so important, because now building an enterprise data platform, leveraging the technology that Databricks brings to the table, allows our clients to have a single source of truth on a technology platform that's not only scalable, but it's intuitive and allows marketers and other individuals to receive the right data at the right time. Now, you may not like the answer, right? But you have to believe the data. So I say all the time, you may not like the data, but you have to believe the data. But as it relates to creative intuition and data-driven precision, the question is, again, with all of this data, we've never had more data than we do today. In fact, we probably have too much data. Most of you, whether you're on the client side or on the services side, you may argue the fact that there is more data available to us than we can even possibly use, which is why technology and AI in the Databricks platform, as an example, are just so powerful and so amazing, because computing power has finally caught up with the amount of data that we have in the marketplace. But again, all the processing in the world, all of the visibility into that data doesn't and will not supersede the fact that the human touch is critical. Technology is still is not perfect, right? It can interpret data, it can look at data and analyze that data and help find patterns that might take us too long as humans, but can it actually drive emotion? Can it drive the creativity? Can it drive the cultural impact that's needed to communicate with different audiences, with different segments, with different personas? Not at the human level. So now we have this rise of autonomous decision makers. And I want to differentiate the idea behind automation and agentic. So what does agentic really mean? And the idea behind agentic is that it interprets data from data, right? So, or drives information from data. So unlike automation, which is very business rule driven, it's very process driven. It focuses on a set of business rules to process, to drive workflow, to automate certain tasks. Agentic is a learning platform, right? So it's learning more and more based on insights and additional data that you continue to pump into the system. But is it a strategist? Or is it just an assistant? Right. So this is one of the big questions that I know we face all the time with our clients, which is when we say AI as a strategy, right? Is it a strategy? Is it a technique? Is it a capability? Is it something that will tell us what to do? Or is it something that informs what we decide to do? And we believe it's the latter, right? We believe that using AI to derive insights from data that otherwise may take too long to generate, or may be hard to uncover through the mining and the nuggets that are buried deep inside a large superset of data that admittedly just may take too long for a human to parse. But it can't define your strategy because it doesn't understand necessarily all of the socioeconomic and the world economic and the geographic and the political impacts of decisions being made. It doesn't understand the emotions or the specifics about the demographics or the segments that you're trying to discuss from a cultural nuance or a language perspective. So how can you solely build your strategy based on the results of AI? You cannot. So rest assured, all of you still have jobs. In fact, your jobs got more important because now you have a whole nother set of team members that you didn't have before, right? So you've got your marketers that you have to worry about, but now you've got your technology marketers, AI, that are contributing to the mix as well. So you should all go back and ask for a raise because you all just took on a significant number of new team members that are now part of your marketing organization. But there's a double-edged sword. There always is, right? Is too much technology a good thing? Is too much human intervention a good thing? And it goes back to, sort of when technology moves from an enabler to a disruptor. And when does technology dictate strategy? Well, again, there were a couple examples that I could go on and on about, but one example is, and I spend a lot of time, as I mentioned, in life sciences and healthcare. I have a healthcare client who had a very firm belief in terms of what their data was telling them as it relates to their segments and how they should be effectively communicating with their members for Medicare. What they quickly learned by using AI, using a larger set of data, was that although the segments were directionally accurate, they found additional nuggets of information that allowed them to target individuals with more specific personalization and messaging to drive higher, not only higher membership, but higher retention of members after they had reached the age of 65. So again, it was not dictating their overall strategy, didn't change their pricing structure, didn't change their product offering for Medicare, but did inform how they communicate to their segments differently. The illusion of control. I have this at home, by the way, with my kids. So you could just replace our marketers and say, are my kids setting the agenda or following algorithms, or is it, or actually, I'm sorry, am I setting the agenda or following algorithms? It's probably the latter with at home, but again, it goes back to setting the agenda, right? You understand your business better than anybody else, more than a machine does, more than people outside of your industry. And so looking at the data as a contributor and an enabler to what you do is critical. And that's that other teammate, it's that hidden teammate, that one that can process faster. I don't know, what was I'm probably gonna sort of date myself here with the age. It was the $6 million man. It could run faster, do all those things, right? And some of you look at the audience, $6 million man, what is that? You can look it up. It was a great TV show, by the way. So our market is setting the agenda or following algorithms. You're not following algorithms. You cannot follow algorithms. You should not rely on the algorithms. You should incorporate the algorithms. You should take advantage of the algorithms. You should interpret those algorithms. But you need to continue to set the agenda if you're going to drive the experiences that you want. So as we sort of come up towards the ladder here and close out soon, endangered or evolving, what's left? Right? Is there anything left for us? If machines supposedly can do all this stuff, what do we do, right? What about creativity, empathy, and oversight, right? Or ethics, or is it just oversight? Well, I think I've beat this one to death in that it's not just oversight. Oversight is not enough. You need to combine that creative expertise, the ability to pivot, the ability to make real-time adjustments based on market needs that data can't always interpret. Another big one, the risk of de-skilling marketers. This is a huge risk. We are so caught up in the conversation around technology and AI, we run the risk of suggesting that we do not need the skills in marketing that we have historically needed. And that is absolutely false. In fact, I would argue you need more skills than you need today. The role of the CMO is changing. Right? There was a point in time where the CMO was the creative genius. It was the person behind the 30-second spot or the big brand positioning. That's still important. Right? Again, my creative skills aside, that's still very important, or lack of creative skills as the case may be. But now understanding technology, understanding how to interpret data, understanding how to leverage agentic, Gen AI, autonomous agents as part of your marketing strategy and as part of your marketing program is even more critical. And so I urge you, when you leave here today or this conference this week, take the learnings from all the sessions that you go to, take the learnings from how Databricks is leading the market as it relates to tools that drive better insights and platforms to help us as marketers decision off of that, and use that as a sort of a high watermark or as a driver for upskilling our resources to make sure that we're incorporating that as we move forward. Which brings me to sort of the point of the hybrid thinker. That's what you need to be, a hybrid thinker. You're not going to just sit around and babysit and wait for the agent or the algorithm to tell you what to do. You need to be able to interpret, you need to be able to adjust, you need to be able to pivot, you need to be able to understand and then drive results from that. And collaborate or surrender. Well, the reality is surrender is not an option. There's no white flag here that we're all going to raise and say we're just going to surrender no matter how much news you read about robots taking over the world, or if you drive from the airport in San Francisco downtown, you may see signs that actually say they're for customer service agents. And I mean agents as a technology, not as an individual, but it basically says, meet so-and-so, your new digital agent. Basically, it says, why do you need humans? Right? Very disturbing, right? I know you used the term Ferminator. I guess that one's very Terminator. And that's not what we're thinking. But is the marketer sort of a chief algorithm officer? Probably needs to be part of the expectation of a marketer, right? To understand that the algorithms, again, not rely on the algorithms, but understand them. Is there such a thing as a fully autonomous marketing department? Absolutely not. Right? Your jobs are all safe. My job is safe. We're still needed, right? We are still important to the contributions of society and to our customers and to our organizations. But we would be wrong to think that we can do it alone or that we should do it alone. Agentic, Gen AI, data is not a differentiator. It is table stakes. You can either, what's the Star Trek, the Borg, assimilate, right? They used to say assimilate or die, right? For those Trekkie fans, this is a collaborate situation. If you want to maintain your competitive differentiation in the marketplace, you need to ensure to collaborate. So what do you need to stay to do relevant? Embrace, challenge, and reinvent. Those are the three key words that I want you to take away today. Those are the most important. Embrace the technology that has presented itself to you. You are at a moment in time, literally a revolution that previous generations haven't seen, and we likely will not see at this level again for decades or longer. That is a huge learning opportunity, market opportunity, but with that comes a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt, because we don't like change as humans. We generally don't like it. You say, yeah, I'm good with change. No, you're not. You're really not, right? So embrace it and accept the challenge. It's not going to be easy. If it's easy, they wouldn't call it work, right? There's a reason why this stuff is hard. I think Michael Dell once said, the reason why technology is difficult isn't because it's unknowable, it's because it's undoable. Right? And I would argue that here. In this case, it's not necessarily that it's undoable, but we just need to be willing to accept the change and reinvent. Don't assume that you have the skills today. There was at some point a point in time where you might have been or felt like you were the smartest person in the room. I know for me, those years have long since passed, but I'm constantly working to reinvent myself, so I challenge each of you to reinvent and think about how that works in the future. But if AI can do your job better, what will you do next? And again, I go back to the previous, you're going to embrace it, you're going to adapt, you're going to reinvent, and you're going to find a way to work with it versus compete with it. Sometimes the best way forward is through. With that, I know I went over on time, but I appreciate everyone's time today. Hopefully this was slightly better than unfulfilling. Again, I know that this can be a 15-hour conversation, but hopefully you feel invigorated, excited, and up to the challenge to work to the next generation in the future of marketing. Thank you.
Up next, please welcome to the stage the CMO panel on how CMOs are innovating with data and AI.
Awesome. So if you weren't in the room earlier, I'm Rick Schultz. I run marketing for Databricks, and I'm super excited to have the opportunity to host a panel with these really impressive marketing leaders. I'm actually going to have each of them introduce themselves, and as they do, I'm actually going to ask each of you to talk a little bit about where you are on your data journey. Don't worry, we'll talk about AI plenty in a minute. But as we highlighted kind of in the earlier sessions, first it's all about building the data foundation and unifying your data. And so maybe we'll start at the end with you, Zeynep.
Hello everyone. My name is Zeynep, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Atlassian. That's a really hardcore entry into the topic data. And obviously we all know that without a great data foundation, we can't do much with AI, so that's a good starting point. The way we think about data maybe is in 3 layers. There's always a unification layer. Obviously, as marketers, we need a lot of different data sources to be successful. At Atlassian, we run 2 major motions, a very sort of scaled product-led growth motion, as well as a sales-led growth motion. So we bring in, obviously, at the center of it is our customer data, but also a lot of product insights, product data, as well as interactions in the marketing funnel, in the sales funnel, campaigns data. So all of them have to be unified, and we actually use a open and composable foundation built on Databricks, which is, so that unification layer is always in evolution, and we're actually always trying to do better. The second layer I think about is more of the governance layer. How do we trust data? How do we make sure it's accurate? How do we make sure it has the right coverage, right? So that's the second layer, which is crucial. And then the third layer I think about is intelligence. How do we build intelligence on top of the data, learning system, machine learning algorithms, but agentic experiences as well on top of that right now. There is no such thing as one layer will be finished and the next layer will be built and then the next layer. All 3 layers have to evolve at all times. And that kind of released me into sort of, as a marketer, thinking about, always constant evolution, constant iteration on each of those layers. So maybe I'll stop there.
Awesome. My name's Calen. I am a VP of Marketing at AirTable. And for those of you who don't know, AirTable is an AI platform to turn your data into different business applications and tools. And so our data layer and our data foundation is super important. And we just completed our migration off of Redshift into Databricks, which is really important to me as just like Zeynep, a heavy PLG kind of growth company where product usage data is easily our strongest signal that we have from a marketing lens. And so I need that data unified with my sales data, my marketing data, to really make sure we're optimizing hyper-personalized experiences and going after the right accounts.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Joyce, and I lead the marketing team at Dropbox. And I would say very similar to what Atlassian is going through, we are evolving from a product-led to building our muscle on the sales-led motion. And because of that, I would put us a little bit earlier on the curve in terms of data maturity, because part of it is rethinking how we need to centralize across different platforms, and then we're redefining and re-standardizing our data taxonomies from the individual lead contact to the campaign taxonomy. And then the third piece is also unifying across not just the marketing data, but candidly all go-to-market sources, first and third party, as we think about some of the earlier comments about enrichment. How do you bring that in so you make sure you have the right information about your customers and prospects to serve them up the right information, right time, right place?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you all. And I'll just talk for a moment about Databricks. I think we're actually not even as far along as Atlassian. You've been a customer for quite a long time of Databricks, maybe 6 years, I would guess. You would think Databricks maybe has always had its data unified because we're Databricks, but actually not so much because we grew up pretty fast. And so not too long ago, just go 2-3 years back, we actually did have also the same problem like a lot of you have. We had data silos, we had our product data, our web data, Salesforce, 6sense, you name it, Marketo, what have you. And just it's only been the last couple of years where we really unified all of the data into the marketing data lakehouse and in the data intelligence platform. And I would say, if I had to say the 2 capabilities that really has opened up for us is number one is we use it as a foundation of a composable CDP. We happen to use also a product called HighTouch as the activation layer. But we really, by having our data unified, we actually are able to do much better job segmentation and also look at campaign performance. When we talk about CDP, actually sometimes we internally jokingly kind of call it C-squared DP, because for us it's not just about the customer data. The campaign data is like at least equally important, so we can see which things are performing and what have you. And if I had to say the second capability that it really opened up, which has been a game changer for us, is we have a product called Genie that Dan talked about in his keynote, and we have a department version of it, Marketing Genie, where it's trained on our marketing data, and it's self-service conversational analytics, so the non-technical users in marketing, which is probably like, I don't know, like you could say roughly 80-90% of my team would fall in that category, and including myself because my SQL statements are pretty rusty. We can actually ask questions of the data and get the answers much faster than waiting for like a dashboard to be built. So I'm curious, maybe since you two are a little further in your journey of unifying data, kind of what has been the biggest one or two capabilities that unifying your data has opened up for you?
Yeah, very similar to you, actually. I have a great example. Atlassian has its own product called Rovo, which spans across enterprise search, chat, and agentic experiences. And we did build a customer 360 agent on our Databricks data, which has allowed us to really interact with a lot of data in natural language, which, as you said, it is actually a very powerful concept if you think about it, because so many people are somewhat tied down to whatever the dashboards actually they're exposed to, as opposed to free flow conversations with their data. So that's been a really big unlock. The next reason, the other reason it was a big unlock is I really think that this blending of structured and unstructured data when you're having conversational moments with your data, with analytics, is really important to be able to go from a holistic view of understanding the numbers behind your customers, but also experiences, anecdotes. So actually merging those things to really have a holistic conversation with an AI agent was a big unlock for us.
Yeah, I think while we just kind of unified everything within Databricks, what the biggest unlock so far has been is back to the sort of product usage data, actually feeding a lot of that into our MQL scoring and the way we think about what leads and who is ready for sales conversations. It really opened the aperture up to redo a lot of our predictive models and start to think about those a little differently. And not just the models and what they're predicting, but then how we're creating those customized experiences. We too have high touch on top of Databricks that is helping us really quickly sort of pivot and learn in those different sort of customer experiences. And I feel like we've been talking about the customer 360 for a really long time, but it also feels finally very, very tangible.
Yeah, great, fantastic. And with that, let's shift into Gen AI a little bit, and I'm kind of going to break it down into external customer-facing use cases, and then we'll come later in a moment to internal use cases. So let's start with, I'm curious where you've seen the most success in external use cases, and also where some of the pitfalls are. And maybe we'll start with you, Joyce.
Yeah, one of our probably most successful use cases is within content marketing, and I think back to one of the first keynotes of personalization at scale. It's really that at heart. And specifically, if I break down the use cases within content marketing, I would break it into two. One is the content velocity, where now a lot of my content marketers and campaign marketers are able to get over 70% of their first draft of SEO content using AI assisted. So think of all the creative, first blank page problem that we often face. It's just being able to have a partner to iterate through that has created velocity. The other part is content governance, is being able to train the models in a lot of laborious time sink on proofreading, as an example, whether it's grammar or how the specific spelling is for your partners, to be able to take out thousands of errors that we've spotted since year to date. Using and rolling that out has been a game changer for us in terms of win in very obvious use case. In terms of the pitfalls, I would say conversely is like what we're observing is for our newer products like Dash, where you don't have historical baselines, the model is only as good as what artifacts you have to train it. So when you're trying to think about new industries or new adjacent segments that you're trying to break through, you have to use proxy markets or next best. So that's where I would just caution of thinking about where you are in that business maturity and how much you can think about in terms of using the AI models.
Yeah, I think similar, like content generation is definitely up there, but the thing I'm currently working on and most excited about is actually a beta feature within Airtable that we call Creative Air, which is taking, if your creative team creates one paid ad, if you could then put that into all of your plans, so think about channel variations, audience, tone, and message that you want to create, or even language, and have it sort of proliferate all those different variants all within your workflow. And so I'm being charged with testing this out as our own beta for our paid media team, but it's been really fun to test out, and it was part of OpenAI's initial image generation, so we're using that technology within it. And I think that's really where the big unlock is going to be, is not one-offs, but how do we do this at scale? And that is allowing us to use all of our data and use all of our signals to test these different variations. And so I think the image gen stuff is going to be huge.
Yeah, great examples. One interesting one that I could potentially mention is email marketing, where we're doing some experiments that are yielding really good results. At Atlassian, we have this concept of what we call anchor journeys. So we try to, in the product-led growth motion, we try to get prospective users from search intent all the way to a personalized landing page and a personalized product experience that they land in, and even the first email they get and the onboarding email. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with those. So what we're doing is we're essentially using AI to personalize that first email they get based on all the way to why they're there to begin with their search intent. And we've seen up to 15% uplift on that first week experience in terms of how much they adopt the product. So, so that's probably an interesting.
Yeah, you guys all have great use cases. I'm taking a lot of notes here. We have some external use cases, particularly around lead follow-up and aggregating data to help SDRs and account reps be able to more intelligently follow up with the right industry story, et cetera. But I would say, by and large, on balance, we probably have actually more internal-facing employee productivity use cases. I already mentioned the conversational self-service analytics we do with the Marketing Genie. We have some others, like the way we do content tagging, and even the way we respond to the really dense, like, analyst RFPs. And we have a session later that Liz and Sonia are going to talk, I think the closing session, about how we use some of our own technology in that. But I'm curious also about what internal use cases you are using with Gen AI. Maybe we'll start down this end again.
Yeah, so I would say one of the internal use cases was actually refining our competitive positioning strategy, where at the beginning of the year, the SDRs, coincidentally, you had mentioned, had moved into marketing. And one of the first questions I had is, we've been, heads down on refining all of our campaign messaging, our outreaches towards displacing and creating battle cards against one singular competitor. And I was like, hey, time out, have we validated this? And what we actually did is we actually mined through all the call scripts and analytics that would have taken previous SDR managers hours to listen through. And it took us within an afternoon to identify that it actually was that singular competitor showed up less than 10% of our prospecting and discovery calls. And we realized, hey, we had the wrong position and the wrong kind of eyesight of who are we trying to go up against. And it really quickly iterated on our competitive strategy, and therein upstream to how we need to redefine our campaign messaging.
That's cool. I think we have a lot of internal use cases, but one that I do tend to use on a pretty daily basis is we built a tool internally that all of our customer contracts go into this tool, and I can ask it questions of, can I use this logo? Can I reference this customer? Find me a customer in this industry that can do this thing. And so I can go in there and very quickly identify those to then kind of build into my campaign plans, which I think the concept of document extraction in general is going to be huge for marketers. Same with your analyst relations, sort of all those briefs. We do the same thing. I think there's a lot there.
Do you want me to go as well?
Yeah, please.
Okay, yeah, mine is probably a little personal one. When I joined Atlassian almost 2 years ago, we were internally testing Rovo, the sort of chat and search, enterprise chat and search capability. And it actually helped me personally onboard very fast, and I could just ask all sorts of questions without being shy. So there were no dumb questions, and I could ask 50 questions and no judgment. So I thought that was a very interesting moment for me to realize that, how many times we change projects within an organization and how many new people come in and go. And this pace of learning, what the potential is in terms of how we can unlock the pace of learning in our organizations has been very interesting.
Great, and one of the things we were talking about in some of the prep sessions was just while all the hype and buzz, and maybe rightly so, has been around Gen AI and all the different use cases and opportunities that opens up, it's important not to sort of forget about classic AI and good old-fashioned machine learning, predictive analytics, quantitative AI, and there's so many use cases for that around customer engagement or campaign optimization. And for example, we use it not only for lead scoring and account scoring, but also one of the things that's really brought us a lot of value over the last year or two is we created this thing, FPOI, which is a way of measuring our campaigns. POI is just pipeline on investment, just like ROI, but it's measuring stage 2 pipeline. And but the FPOI is the forecasted POI is like the really important part, because if we really want to wait to see pipeline on investment of a campaign, we have to let at least a couple quarters pass. This may be different in different businesses in consumer world or what have you, but like for our business, our sales cycle, it takes a little time when someone's buying an entire data platform. And so it takes a little too long to see without the FPOI. So the fact that we're able to forecast this means within 4 to 6 weeks, we can tell if it's a good campaign, we should run more of it, or if it's a struggling campaign, is there anything we can do with the follow-up or tuning it, or maybe we just don't run that campaign anymore. So I know we were talking about this in the prep, and you guys also have some pretty interesting, sort of classic AI use cases. Love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been at classic AI for a very long time, way longer than the generative AI buzz. But things like, I think maybe some of the obvious things are next best play, bid optimization, all of those happen. One of the ones that I'm excited about more recently is how we manage our budgets and the ability just to put in constraints into the system and let it figure out how much to spend for each product, each geo, market, and channel. It's kind of, we're testing this capability, but it actually saves months, like at least 6 months of a year, us actually doing this manually. It gives us a starting, but of course there's always human AI iteration, as in everything. I agree with the previous speaker, that's going to go on for a while, but that's exciting to me on the sort of more classic machine learning side of things.
I don't know if classic is the right word for it, because I still think ML is a sexy use of AI. So I think there's a lot of progress that we've made here, partially being on platforms like Databricks. But one more recently that my data team, who is here as well, really helped work on and unlock was I was charged with really ramping up a lot of our paid search spend. And where can we max that out? And so being, again, a PLG, sort of like self-serve growth company into sort of those bigger, longer-term enterprise deals, identifying the value of a new product sign-up as quickly as possible is really what we needed. And so we were able to run a few different predictive models, build an enterprise LTV that would show us within the first week how much is that lead most likely going to make us over the next 3 to 5 years. And so that enabled me to then send a value back into Google to say, hey, this is how much this lead is worth, and really optimize our spend. And so, I got to 3x my paid search budget, which was pretty fun.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an awesome use case. And I kind of want to shift to kind of our final topic is really about skills and how AI is changing marketing skill sets and how you're getting your teams to embrace AI. And particularly on the skill sets, it's quite interesting, actually, that I'm sitting up here with 2 leaders who came from running analytics teams, and then Zeynep, you actually have a PhD in machine learning. So maybe we'll start with you.
I'm not going to require any marketer to have a PhD in machine learning. I don't think that's fair. I do think that, there's a skill set thing, and then there's a comfort zone thing. I think we have to be very comfortable experimenting with AI and testing the boundaries. I think that's one area. In terms of skill sets, it's really, the skill set we need is one of briefing AI and evaluating and iterating with AI. Some call it prompt engineering, but that's a very literal term. But it's really this learning how to frame your problems, the problems that you're all very familiar with. Sometimes it could be hard to frame it for AI, and just getting used to that is really an important skill to have. The next level skill is probably making good judgment around where to use AI and where not to use AI, and how to sort of take one step at a time in terms of more of the action taking.
Yeah, I have long said that I think data literacy as a core skill set for a marketer is something that all of us need to be constantly fine-tuning and growing and building on. And that doesn't just mean like you understand the KPIs and attribution models and things like that, but it's you actually understand where your data is being captured, how it's being populated, what that actually means. That's going to help you ask the right questions and know when and where to sort of adjust what you're analyzing. And I think in the world of generative AI, building your own agents, all of these things, that data literacy piece becomes like 10x as important, because now you're creating things that are going to go off and do stuff on your behalf, with potentially sometimes without that human element. And so understanding that you're using the right data to do that you're generating your content briefs off of some of that the right customer data in the right way, it's more powerful, but it's also a little riskier.
Yeah, really similarly to build off of that is hard and soft skills. Hard being we're always data-informed decisions, but what's different is, I talked to my team about it, is learning how to prompt is very different. So you can probe into the assumptions and know when is data good enough. You're never going to get like 100% of the information all the time. So that's the art of the data side of decision making. I think the soft side is, I draw upon some of my consulting days where it's very hypothesis based. There's so many AI tools out there, and it can be, I call it to my team, it's a shiny ball effect. And you have to be very focused on what problem you're trying to solve for. So then you can sift through what tools are the most meaningful and the highest leverage of the impact you need. You can test and iterate, but make sure you don't drown in kind of just so much that is in the forefront of AI right now.
Well, that was fantastic. That was really helpful in terms of how to think about the skills marketers need to build and how to encourage them to embrace AI, and also know when not to embrace AI, to your point. That's awesome, and hopefully you learn a little bit about kind of the value and unlock of unifying data foundation, and also got some good ideas around all these different use cases for AI, both Gen AI and ML. For internal and external use cases in marketing. So with that, I'd like to thank our panelists, and let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Bryan Saftler. I'm a director of marketing here at Databricks, and we're going to take a quick 15-minute networking break because I know we've been powering through this morning, but you are not going to want to miss the next set of sessions because we have Grant Reese, the Chief Data and AI Officer of T-Mobile, is going to start our session coming up next. An amazing talk by our head of Lifecycle at Grammarly. Then we're going to have a powering personalization panel, and we're going to finish with Databricks on Databricks Marketing. It's going to go fast. Do not miss this. Please go grab a cup of coffee, go to the restroom, be back here at 10:40. 10:40. That is in 15 minutes, and we'll see you guys very shortly. Hey, everybody, what's going on? Again, my name is Bryan Saftler. I'm a director of marketing here at Databricks. I'm super excited to welcome you guys back. You're going to hear that word super excited all this week. Our CEO, Ollie, loves that term. So we're just going to say super excited and go with it. I have up next an amazing fireside chat with the Chief Data and AI Officer of T-Mobile. And I love chatting with this guy. And it turns out we actually know a lot of people back in the day. He's worked with companies like Convoy, and he's been in the startup space. He's been around marketing for a long time. So when we were talking about topics, we wanted to kind of go back a little bit and have more of like a robust discussion about how marketing has evolved since his time with Blue Kai in 2008. So with that, I'd love to introduce Grant Reese. Welcome to the stage, Grant. I'm so excited to be with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm going to juggle microphones because this is how we do this. Grant, hello.
Hello.
For the audience here, tell everybody here a little bit about yourself, your background. Who are you? What are you doing at T-Mobile? Let's get started with that.
Okay, well, I've been in the data space for a long time, so going back to really till about 2000. And in 2008, I started a company called Blue Kai, which launched the first DMP, and it had the largest data marketplace. So in 2014, we got acquired by Oracle. Then my co-founder and I started the Oracle Data Cloud, which was a global business unit under Thomas Kurian, who's now Google. And then as luck would have it, I started another company that was like, a little bit like Blue Kai, but with B2B advertisers as our focus. And that company actually got acquired by LiveRamp. So I went over to LiveRamp for a while, ran just about every business there. and then have done some investing and advisory stuff outside of digital advertising, like Convoy. And then, as luck would have it, I got a call from T-Mobile, and they said, "Hey, we have all this great data, and we want someone to help us figure it out." So about a year and a half ago, I joined T-Mobile, and I've been helping with their data strategy and managing all the analytic environments like Databricks and kind of end-to-end data and AI. And then hopefully, if we're good at the data and AI piece, then we can also commercialize some of that technology and find new revenue streams. So that's where I am today.
Awesome. So Blue Kai in 2008, obviously this is a startup that was providing marketing insights to companies who are looking to do advertising. 2008 to 2025, that's a lot of time. And in the digital realm, that's, dog's age. That's forever. What's changed, and what are some of the lessons that were holding true in 2008 that are still relevant today?
We're still acronym chasing. So, but kidding aside, I would say what's changed is everything was desktop back then, and now everything's mobile. So that's probably the most fundamental change. That's, I think, thing one. Thing two is privacy. So if you don't stay ahead of privacy, then you're going to get in a lot of trouble. So, and that's global now. So I would say the first is desktop to mobile. The second is privacy. The third probably would be social media, right? So you didn't have TikTok and all these massive social platforms that consume tons and tons of time and fragment our the data even more and our audiences even more.
Yeah. So I think when we were chatting, we were talking about how back in the day marketing was a lot of vibes. How does it feel? If I just get the perfect title, if I get the perfect pitch, the perfect creative, if I just do demand, it's all going to work out. And I think today we were talking about this, like how that's not really true anymore. And I think a lot of teams are now wrestling with this idea that I have to be far more focused on using data to inform my marketing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this at just about every company where, and this is I forgot to answer it from the prior question, which is one of the things that has remained the same is the challenge of organizing your data. So right now, you can have the best creative in the world and the best media in the world, and if you have the wrong data, then it's going to screw everything up. It's going to screw up your strategy. It's going to screw up your assumptions around personalization. I mean, I'll give you an example that hopefully isn't a common one, but I'm a T-Mobile customer. Nothing pisses me off more than to get a T-Mobile special ad, special offer when I'm already a customer. So bad data leads to bad everything. It leads to a pissed off customer. It leads to bad prospecting. It can cost a lot of money. It can mess up your personalization. So I think that one of the biggest issues, and this is an issue that Databricks, plug for Databricks, is it's never been more important than now to manage your data, to connect your data, and to have it in an extensible environment where you can share data in a privacy-centric way. And so we work with Databricks on that, and that is just becoming more and more of a challenge. I guess the last thing I'd say is you still have a lot of really smart CMOs that are operating under an old model where it can take weeks and weeks and weeks to even run a campaign, to go from starting, thinking about a campaign to running it, and by the time you run it, it's kind of too late. So we need to move way more quickly.
So at T-Mobile, and you were just mentioning this a moment ago, there are actually a lot of marketers, a lot of marketing leaders that look after different parts of the business, because in a communications environment, there's a lot of different businesses that operate almost independently. How does your role, in thinking of these almost as your internal customers, how does your role impact working with those teams?
Yeah, I mean, I view the different departments, the different business units at T-Mobile as my customers, like you said, and it is like a data confetti bomb went off in every company, right? So there's so much data, and you can imagine the amount of data that T-Mobile creates on a minute-by-minute basis. So a big challenge for me is to connect all of that data. And that is not an easy task with a company the size of T-Mobile. It's actually not an easy task for anyone. You have all these data sets living in all these different systems. And if you think about, from a CMO's perspective, a unified customer ID, so I want one Bryan. There aren't 10 different Bryans. It's still Bryan, right? But if you're living in 15 different platforms and there's just a slice about Bryan in each, then you're never going to be able to anticipate Bryan's needs. And what I expect from a brand now, I think we all do as customers, is we want the brand to know us, right? We want the brand to have if the brand wants to have a relationship with us, they have to really know us. And so connecting all those signals and the data points around a person so you can have a unified 360 view is something that we've talked about for a long time. But now, we're doing it at T-Mobile. Now it's incumbent on the marketer to be able to do that, or you'll be left behind.
I think to harken back to what Dan had said at the top of this entire session, teams, when we're talking to customers as Databricks, we're talking about how do we do greater personalization at scale? How do we drive more relevant, more efficient campaigns? How do we help teams that are non-technical self-serve the data that they need to go from event to insight to action? And then how do we use AI to help automate certain tasks so that the humans can do the human stuff? I think what you're talking about is so important. When you have internal customers that are kind of across the rest of your business, you're having to multiply the challenge component exponentially. We were chatting earlier about how T-Mobile is such a creative storytelling culture. How do you balance storytelling with data-driven marketing?
Well, they're I actually don't think they're mutually exclusive. I actually think they go hand in hand. So T-Mobile has always been a fantastic storyteller. What an incredible and iconic brand that they've created. So I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. From the data perspective, bad data in, bad data out. So bad data, which I mentioned earlier, it wrecks your personalization, it wrecks your assumptions, it wrecks your strategy. So you could draw all sorts of horrible conclusions that you might not even know are wrong. And you've got, for example, I talk to brands all the time, and when you dig in, they've got redundant, wrong emails about the person, and all that, they have all these data sets that are sitting in different silos, often outdated. So you're targeting the wrong people that often don't even exist. So I would say that it starts with clean data, and then a beautiful narrative on top of that. You can't understand your customer and understand their needs. A good story doesn't matter if it's not going to the right person.
Can you share some examples of where you're seeing some great storytelling, great marketing happening in T-Mobile today?
Yes, for sure. So from my perspective, I think of marketing and I think probably a lot of people are starting to change. The definition of marketing is changing over time. So for example, when I think about the customer relationship that we have, that starts from before they're a customer till after they're not a customer. And so whether you're out prospecting or whether you're looking at the customer journey and life cycle, there are kind of infinite number of ways that we touch our customers on a daily basis. And so how are we meeting the needs of our customer before they even realize it sometimes? And so we actually launched a product called IntentCX, and we're partnering with some of the best AI minds in the world, and we're looking at billions and billions of data points across our network, every possible data set that we can have, our customer care records, you name it, and that IntentCX allows us to do a number of really interesting things. So it's manifesting in some ways through chatbots and different types of bots, but basically when someone comes with a digital inquiry, through a chatbot, it's resolving almost nearly every question that someone has through AI same day with skyrocketing NPS. So it's really great. It also helps our frontline people. When Bryan calls, it gives the person answering that call hints. It says, here's why Grant's calling. and it's very accurate. It also tells Bryan, here's why Grant's calling, here's what you should recommend to him. And it's not just sales. So to me, understanding that customer relationship from tip to tail is paramount. It's not just selling and selling them more stuff. So it gives you a hint as to why I'm calling. It gives you recommendations for what you should offer me, whether it's a sale or a technical piece of advice, and the why. So we're really proud of that. It's massively reducing the issues that we have and truncating how much time it takes for us to resolve issues, and it's helping sell more stuff.
There's a lot that I want to unpack on that.
Yeah.
I think there's some really important points here, especially for folks in the audience, marketing leaders, aspiring marketing leaders. Two things. One, you hinted at the volume of data that T-Mobile has, and so I want to talk in a moment about the importance of first-party data.
Yep.
But then another thing that you said a moment ago, which was how you're leveraging AI to enhance the humans as your organization, not necessarily replace them. So let's talk about both of those. Let's start with first-party data. First-party data in T-Mobile, that's got to be some of the most important data you can touch.
Oh, absolutely. We have just a goldmine of data, and what we're doing with that data is, again, it starts with connecting the data. So looking at the network data, looking at the customer data, looking at the billing data, looking at all of the data that's like spread across the company and connecting in a new unified ID. So that's a big project. Databricks is helping us with that project. But if you can't connect the data, then you're only getting an incomplete picture. If you're getting an incomplete picture, then how can you possibly get that dream of one-to-one personalization right? So that's the first question. What was the second one?
Second question is, how are you using AI to enhance the humans that are doing the business with your customers?
Oh, got it. So it's funny, people talk about AI as this scary thing that's gonna, steal everybody's jobs and put everyone out of business. And maybe it's just because I'm from Seattle, but I look at Microsoft, and I'm dating myself. But if you look at Microsoft, did software put everyone out of business? No. It actually created a $1 trillion industry. And it gave it gave people new tools to make them better versions of themselves. And as a matter of fact, my recommendation would be for every CMO, get on the bus now. A year ago, it was test. A year ago, it was like, hey, test and learn, and take big risks if you're a small company. This year, it's test and learn for enterprise companies. So move very, very quickly. Learn as quickly as you can. Partner. You don't have to invent everything yourselves. Rely on the great partners that are investing in AI for different pieces of it, like what you guys are doing with AI. But I guess the number one thing that I would say is we are giving our frontline care reps magic. Like AI-powered recommendations, the why behind the recommendations. We are obsessed with our customers, and so anything we can do to help, create a better customer experience, we'll do. And it isn't just relying on some, computer behind the curtain. It's actually helping our frontline people really understand our customers better, so that when they call, they can have that relationship and take it to the next level.
I cannot stress this enough. For everybody that's here, I really hope you guys get a chance to go explore the expo, listen to the keynotes tomorrow. There's a term we're using, you'll hear it on stage, we said it earlier, this idea of the rise of the 10x marketer, the rise of the 10x engineer. Humans who are using AI in their job, they're becoming superhumans. They're able to have more throughput, there's more value they're adding to the bottom line, they're able to do more with fewer resources. It's kind of highlighting on the points that you're talking about. And I think what's interesting, and you highlighted it in your point around this is ready for the enterprise. These are production-ready assets that are in some of the biggest global companies in the world. You're going to hear about them today on stage. You're going to hear about them in the industry panels that are happening this afternoon. You're going to hear about it all day tomorrow on stage with Ali in our keynotes. This is the time to be investing. And if you're not already prototyping, get on the train because you don't want to be behind. So we have a couple seconds left. We're going to kind of run in. I have one more question I kind of want to ask for the group here. Some of the lessons, some of the learnings, what skills, what are the mindsets that leaders need in the room here in order to be effective getting to the next stage?
I would say, from an AI perspective, it's just get your hands dirty. Like, I'm sure everybody has ChatGPT or Anthropic or whatever, on their phone, but like, get into it, use it, start prompting, like, learn yourself. Like, just learn how to use it as a consumer. And then from a business perspective, don't try to solve world hunger all at once. Go find, if you're a marketer, go find one, and this is what I do. Go find one or two areas and think of it as a little supply chain. If you're trying to go solve one specific problem in marketing, go figure out what are the manual parts today. It could be, for example, launching a new campaign, right? You've got the creative and you've got the media, and you've got this whole planning exercise that can take months and months. So figure out what those components are and then chip away at that. Like, where can AI accelerate different pieces of that? For example, in the future, I'll make a prediction. I bet a bunch of people in this room will be here next year, and they'll have agents that can help accelerate, for example, what are the parameters that are required for a new campaign in pricing, in creative, and you'll have 10 agents that'll all work seamlessly together, so that you can launch a campaign in a week instead of 6 months.
I love it. Well, with that, Grant, thank you so very much for your time. Everybody, a round of applause for Grant Reese. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome to the stage next Julie Foley Long with Grammarly. I'll take that.
Oh, thank you so much. Good job.
There you go.
Great. Thank you so much, Bryan. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here with you today. Before we dive in, I'll go ahead and give a quick introduction about myself. My name is Julie Foley Long, and I'm the head of Lifecycle Marketing at Grammarly. If you don't know who Grammarly is, that's okay. I'll get to that in just a few slides. I've spent the last 18 years in tech. My master's degree is in criminology with an emphasis in inferential statistics. So, one wrong turn and here I am in marketing, not out there solving crimes. And over the last 6 years, I've had the absolute pleasure of scaling Grammarly's Lifecycle team from 2 siloed email marketers to a highly dynamic, multi-channel growth marketing team of 24. And really only in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine that we would become such an important part of Grammarly's growth engine. So I've been there when you're working in, maybe I should step back, silos, resource constrained, or if you're challenging the perception that marketers are inherently not data driven. So if you're on that journey, you have a friend and confident in me, so don't hesitate to reach out after this chat. So at Grammarly, we operate at tremendous scale. We send more than 10 billion emails per year. And just to put that in perspective, that's more stars than there are in the Milky Way galaxy. And our team is directly responsible for millions of dollars in outcomes. But we're not here to talk about me or Grammarly. We're all here to learn and think about how can we increase our throughput, our impact, our growth. But at the heart of all of that, I think, is something else, which is risk. It's the courage to take it, the cost if we don't, and that potential upside that we can unlock if we do. So let's talk about risk. What is risk? Maybe it's stepping into the unknown, doing something that feels scary or uncomfortable. Maybe it's daring to do something that someone in your role has never done before. Sometimes risk looks like trying over and over again, and you're chasing something that feels just out of reach for you. It's not instantaneous, it's not always easy, but every step gets you closer. And in reality, as leaders or marketers or data scientists, we all choose to take risks because we believe in something bigger. We believe in some type of upside. And by the end of this 15 minutes, I hope you walk away asking yourself, a year from now and 6 months from now, what story do you want to be telling? The story where you took a big bet and saw it through, or where you followed the status quo? And at Grammarly, taking big bets has always been a part of our DNA. so we'll dive in a little bit into that story in Once Upon a Startup. So Grammarly started back in 2009 as a student subscription service. We were growing, things were going well, and we were paid, so bootstrapped from the beginning. And it could have stayed that way. We could have stayed on this trajectory, but our founders had a bigger vision. And in 2015, we made a bold move. We opened up Grammarly to everyone, so students and professionals alike, and we also started offering our product for free. So if you think of a freemium business model, usually it's the other way around. You go from free to paid. We did the opposite. And it paid off. It didn't only change our business model, but it ignited our growth, and we started reaching 40 million daily active users. And we didn't stop there. In 2018, we kicked off Grammarly for Enterprise, offering Grammarly to organizations. In 2023, we took the bet that helped create the Grammarly that some of you may know today, which is this very beloved AI communication assistant that now serves not only 40 million people every day, but 50,000 organizations, including a third of the Fortune 500. And just a few months ago, we took another big bet. We acquired Coda, and now we're working toward building an AI productivity platform that brings agents and apps together. So our bold moves were paying off. I felt like after 6 years of doing this, I'd hit a rhythm until, boom, the AI gold rush. And I think all of us sitting here know that that future, it didn't knock, it just let itself in. And on my commute into San Francisco, I'd look around and just feel overwhelmed by all of the billboards. It seemed like every company either had now AI in its name or in its tagline, and they were all shouting the same thing. And it was during these commutes that I started to realize that if we wanted to stay ahead of the curve, we couldn't just join all of this noise. We needed to change the depth of connection that we had with our customers, which required deep personalization, and that all starts with data. And so we knew as a team where we wanted to go, where we wanted to be, but we also recognized how far we had to travel to get there, which led to, all caps, stress. So why was this going to be stressful and hard? We weren't set up for this. First, we had a ton of technical complexity. We had what felt like a million tools, and a lot of them didn't even talk to each other. We had engineering bottlenecks. So can you raise your hand again if you're a marketer in the room? Okay, see plenty of hands. Keep your hand up if you sometimes feel bottlenecked by your engineering team. You rely on them more than you'd like. Yes. So we have an incredible engineering team, but they're lean. And the marketing team, I see Kushan on my team, his hand's still up. We have a wonderful engineering team, but they're a lean team, and marketing is not always the top priority when we're competing for internal prioritization. And one example of this is shipping a new customer journey or lifecycle funnel would take about 2 months to ship. Also, data was hard to get. We had data silos. We were using a homegrown data platform. And when we did get data, it was really hard to interpret. I remember feeling a ton of anxiety every time we wanted to ship a new campaign because I was worried that we were either going to be accidentally targeting the wrong audience, or if it had dynamic content, that we would send the wrong content to the wrong customer. And then we had decentralized operations. So because our team was so lean, we outsourced a lot. And this meant when we wanted to try to scale and move fast, coordination and that internal context that can be so important began to suffer. So we realized what got us here, which was to a good point, wasn't going to get us to where we needed to go. And these were the 3 lessons that I reflected on as to where we were at. And that was that the tools and processes and systems were now built for a different era. That same structure that helped us scale was now standing in our own way. And if we wanted to continue to lead in this new era, the AI era, we needed more than just being able to do tweaks and optimizations to our program. We needed total transformation. And as a leader, this felt really scary. I knew I was going to have to turn my program and our infrastructure that powered it on its head. And so everything had to be on the table. Our well-oiled team structure, along with very long-standing relationships with agencies and partners, our CRM, almost a decade-long relationship. Our homegrown tech stack that, while it was archaic, it was comfortable. We had our own internal proprietary SQL that we called GQL, and we knew how to use it. We could get some data with it. And then cost, so opportunity cost as well as hard costs. I don't know about you, but even 20 years now into my career, it's still not my favorite thing to go to my executive team and ask for more money. And then this last bullet point was probably the hardest, and this was a conversation I had to have with my team, which was choosing to deploy those precious engineering and data resources that we had that were already slim and press pause for a couple months or a few months and stop optimizing, stop that incremental growth so that we could rebuild from zero. But we took the risk, and we went from the status quo to breakthrough. I revised and reorged our entire team. I think at one point about 70% of my team had a new manager in a single day, and that impacts people's lives. We also ended our comfortable 7-year relationship with our CRM, and we migrated to using Databricks and also High Touch, and those have been absolute game changers and an inflection point for us. We also closed the chapter with our longstanding agency, as I said, and we stopped optimizing for a while and took a big swing. And the moral of the story is that this all worked. It wasn't easy, but it did work in the end. And these are just a few examples of the before and after. We were sending a ton of content, and they were trying to look data-driven, but they're really just static infographics. And we were able to truly become data-driven with dozens of personalized personas based on someone's level at their organization or their interest, or were they a student or professional. We finally achieved high-velocity experimentation, which was something we talked about from the first day I joined Grammarly, but we never quite achieved until this last year. We've gone from shipping 2 or 3 experiments in a quarter to probably now over 100 experiments. And we have these emails, they're called weekly insights. We send these to 50 or 60 million people every single Monday, but they've been stale for a long time, and we're finally able to improve them. And data-driven personalization like this is now attainable. We are now no longer afraid of building what feels like complex decision trees and journeys, and this is being done by marketers. And so this is an active journey that we have in onboarding right now. We're using AI decisioning with High Touch and Databricks. And again, this is possible by marketers. And these are some real results. These may or may not be meaningful to you based on your industry or the scale of your business, but I think the lesson here is that they were very meaningful for us. We had an email experiment, it took a few days to stand up, drove $2 million for us. We also overhauled some of our initial onboarding upsell messaging, and that led to a 16% increase in upgrade rates for our first day, which often in PLG, those first couple of days drive an outsized impact in your revenue dollars. And then last year's production time. So this transformation allowed us to go from 4 to 6 weeks for shipping experiments or new journeys to days. And I think this last point is where the magic is. Driving growth to me is really about being able to have enough at-bats to be able to fail and then have hopefully 20 or 30% of the time you're actually learning. And my team was finally able to have those opportunities. So what's at the heart of all of this is you are all attending this conference for a reason. You're sitting in the audience. Maybe it's to learn, maybe it's to network, but you're here and you're investing your time, so make it count. And so if you just take one thing forward from this last 10 minutes, it's on behalf of your team, on behalf of your customers and your company. Trust your vision, trust your ability to take big bets, and trust your impact. And so there's no template, I wish there was, for transformation, but these are 3 questions that I would recommend starting with. The first is, if you started from scratch today, would you still do it this way? And this question is probably relevant not just if you're in marketing. And usually I think this one's the easiest one to answer. It's oftentimes no, we wouldn't be doing things exactly how we're doing them today. The second question is, if you weren't afraid of breaking the growth loops that you have today, the incremental improvements, where would you start? What would you do if you weren't afraid of breaking what's working? And it's this third question is the one that I would think about if you're building a business case to try to have this type of transformation yourself. And the question is, if you don't try something different now, what's the cost of staying the same? And I would ask this question, get a group of close confidants at work, try to include a technical or data leader in the room with you, and that's really the foundation for painting the opportunity. So this is my wonderful team that does all this work that I just talked about, and I will hand it back over to Bryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. All right, I'm back. And next up, we have an amazing panel that I am excited to introduce. We're going to be talking about personalization. I'd love to welcome my panelists up on stage with me, and we'll get started there. Cool. All right, everybody, a round of applause for our panelists. Yay! Feel free to just take a seat anywhere. Awesome. All right, welcome everybody. We're gonna have some fun. We're talking about personalization. So, of course, we reached out to some thought leaders in the space who are doing amazing things in personalization across the industry, and we wanted to try to get a broad range of opinions. We have Domino's on stage, we have 2K video games on stage, and we have ThredUp on stage. I would love if you guys would briefly introduce yourselves, a little bit about your background, what are you doing at your company, and maybe a project that you're excited about. Kristen, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I'm at ThredUp. I'm the head of marketing. And if you don't know what ThredUp is, you do now. We're an online consignment marketplace where we sell used clothing. And so we like to call ourselves the largest online thrift store, or really the largest thrift store ever. When I think about the future of personalization, why I'm so excited about this discussion is, our job is not just to help customers find what they're looking for and find the perfect outfit. I'm asking ourselves, how do we use personalization to help you cultivate your personal style? How do we use personalization to inspire discovery? And so I'm really thrilled about this subject, and I'm excited to dive into it.
Awesome. Thank you. Dennis.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Dennis Ceccarelli. I am the general manager of the sports business unit at 2K. I've spent the last 7 years working on some of the most iconic franchises in sports gaming history, from NBA 2K to PGA Tour 2K, WWE 2K, and more. Sports are live service games, meaning they're always on. Personalization is the lifeblood of what we do, and it kind of happens at 2 levels. It happens on the back end, in the experience that we try to curate for every player, show the right player the right content, the right message, the right opportunities at the right time. But personalization also happens on the front end, on the player side. Sports inherently are a power fantasy. It's an ability to immerse in something very close to that in real life experience. And for that, players want to personalize their experience. In our PGA Tour golf game, they want to play with the same clubs that they have in real life. They want the new drip that drops in real life, and they want it the same day in game. They want to peacock and self-express in new and different ways all the time. It's always evolving. So when we think about personalization, we've got to think about it through multiple lenses and make sure that we're meeting our players where they are, constantly understanding their evolving needs so that we can give them more of the things that they want, and frankly, invest less in the things that, through their behavior and their feedback, they're telling us that they don't want.
Awesome. And Bryce, Domino's.
Yes, so I'm Bryce Peake. I lead decision sciences at Domino's. My role is really to bring together our zero-party data and first-party data, our AI, our machine learning, and our consumer research to make really advantaged decisions for the business, but also to delight customers. A big piece of my portfolio and the thing that I really cut my teeth as an individual data science contributor through being an executive is personalization. And Domino's, it's such an exciting place. There's so much to personalize within a pizza experience, thinking about people's different occasions, what they want their pizza experience to look like. You know, are you like me and downing a thin crust pie in a single sitting? Or is it like a group occasion? Maybe you're hanging out with your friends, playing some 2K remote and, you know, downing a slice. So there's a lot of opportunity for us there, but beyond just personalizing pizzas and thinking about occasions, you know, we have a lot of different delicious sides. We're thinking a lot about how we bring magical pizza experiences to life beyond just, you know, eating a great piece of pizza.
I love that as an intro, and I actually want to start with you, Bryce. Pizza, personalization, obviously they start with P, but where's the relationship between the two from there?
You know, personalization is actually core of what we do. So, you know, we like to say there's 34 million ways to make a Domino's pizza. And it's not just marketing speak, it's just combinatorial mathematics. When you have that many toppings and different types of crusts and everything, there's a lot of different options. You know, ultimately though, we're not just stopping at toppings. You know, we're in 90 plus countries, more than 21,000 stores around the world. So it's not just like, what pizza do you want? It's when do you want it? Where do you want it? How do you want it? And, you know, and at what price? So that's where our partnership with, you know, Databricks and partners like High Touch come into play. It helps us really understand how we best leverage a lot of different signals. So 85% of our US traffic is from digital channels. We take all that signal and we figure out the right pizzas to recommend. We find the right offers to put in front of people. We think about how do we lead people to the types of pizza occasions they want? How do we intercept them as they're about to have those? And we even use it at a logistics level. So our pinpoint delivery is really about how do we find you logistically and make sure you get that pizza. So I would say, you know, ultimately personalization for us is, you know, respecting individual taste. It's about doing it at scale, and it's about doing it effortlessly for consumers.
I want to pass it to Kristen. I think, you know, when we're talking about different types of businesses, particularly in the retail space, the switching costs are incredibly low. Personalization is a great way to engage and retain customers over time. Tell us a little bit about how ThredUp thinks about personalization.
Yeah, this is such a cool, I think we think about it in a really cool way. We personalize a whole bunch of stuff. We personalize your site experience with us. We personalize the way we market to you. Some examples of that. One of the things that we've spent the last few years really honing is our ability to personalize what we call our ranking and sorting algorithm. So if you come to our site and you search black dress, we know what your price sensitivity threshold might be. We know what brands you tend to gravitate toward. So we want to make sure that just like a Google search result, the first few hundred black dresses you see are responding to your past behavior. And we've seen that investment and that type of personalization have double-digit increases in positive impact on our conversion rate. The second thing that I think is really cool that we did at the end of last year is we've launched a whole bunch of AI personalization tools. Because I think the thing about personalization that's interesting is it's bi-directional, right? Like you want to give your customers the ability to personalize their own experience with you. And so we launched a tool, for example, called Image Search, which I can upload a photo of an outfit I see in the wild that I maybe like surreptitiously took from somebody I like walking down the street. Maybe you ask their permission. Or you see something on social media that you love, you screen grab it, you upload it to our site, and we'll find everything on our site that is related to that item. And the reason that's really important for a business like ThredUp is we have 4 million items on our site that are unique at any given moment. We add 55,000 new items to the site every day. Good reason to go shop. So that's an amazing opportunity for customers because they tell us, we love the variety. We love the selection. I can always find something on ThredUp for me. But that's a lot of stuff. And I already have a ton of decision-making paralysis in my day-to-day. So these personalization tools can help you find what you're looking for faster. That image search tool that I mentioned, it helped customers find a more relevant item for them, 40% more likely to find a more relevant item for them. So these personalization tools are really, really critical to our bottom line, and they solve a real customer problem.
When I think of video games, Dennis, video games are often seen as kind of like the first movers in a lot of new technology. They lead from the front, and a lot of other industries kind of follow what video games do. obviously AI, personalization, data has always been core to video games. Tell us a little bit about the journey that you've been on, because you've been in gaming Xbox back in the day, now at 2K. Tell us a little bit about that journey and the role that data plays as a foundation on how you build and develop games.
Yeah, I mean, data is the lifeblood of everything that we do. Gone are the days where games are put in a box, put on a shelf, where they're bought, beaten, and forgotten. We need to attract a customer, and then we need to retain them. And so the job really starts when we get them in the door. And it never really ends until we sunset a game and then prepare to release the next game. And that's a challenge. We had to completely change the structure of our teams. We had to completely change the way that we thought about data. We used to have data that operated on a 24-hour loop. And if you had a player that received a churn offer, hey, go do X, Y, Z and get this thing to stay in the game. If they did X and Y but not Z before a certain minute of the day, they wouldn't see that reward for another 24-hour cycle. That was really problematic for us, because personalization is not just about putting the right thing in front of your player, but then also having them have the right outcome and feel like they've achieved something and they want to come back for more tomorrow. So we've really had to reconfigure the whole way that we go about supporting our games in order to best understand what our players want, and then inform our cycles. You look at, most of our games are on an annual or a biannual cycle. WWE 2K25 just launched in March. PGA Tour 2K25 launched 2 weeks earlier in February. The next WWE launches in 9 months. The next PGA launches a year after that, and we are already deep in planning for what those games need to be, both in terms of what the player is going to see on the front end and what technology, data, and AI tools we need on the back end to make that experience ever more personal and immersive. And that cycle never really stops. And so I think that's one of the great challenges, is how you have the right foundation and tools in place to keep up with those evolving needs, and making sure that you're building as much as you can into that next experience to keep your players in your ecosystem.
I love that. This is a question for everybody. I want to start with Bryce on this. As a vice president of data science, decision science, how do you set your team up for success? Like, how do you put together the infrastructure and make sure that everybody's on the same page? Because I know a lot of teams here are like, this is great. How do I even get started?
It's a great question. I think it's different for different industries, ultimately, and how you interact with your customers, whether those are your business-facing customers or your actual end customer, the public who's buying from you. For us, we've embedded our teams within the business. We work very deeply in the marketing organization as a way to quickly activate, to be part of those conversations about not, necessarily like, how do we respond to this national window that may happen, but how do we become part of those national window plannings? Where are the places for personalization to drive lift, and where are the places where we, want to keep the magic of the brand? Because I think sometimes when we're looking at, personalization, when we're talking about Gen AI and how you can drive marketing and develop content, it's the magic of the brand that sometimes gets left out. And so being embedded in that marketing organization lets us be part of the brand magic and not, dispersing it too much. Love that.
Yeah, I would say, part of it is how we're configured as a team within my group. We have a business unit that spans commercial strategy, all different forms of marketing, product management, production, data and analytics. And I think it's making sure that each of those functions has a seat at the table. Data has not always had a seat at the leadership table, but for us, data is that connective tissue through everything that we do. So the first big piece of it was setting our team up structurally in the right way, and then building the right operating model. We talk a lot about the power of the collective within our business unit, that no function does anything alone. Everything we do takes a village, and so we need to make sure that we're thinking that way and that we're pulling each other in constantly. The other side of it is how we partner with our central service team. So if you look at creative services, personalization means a lot of A/B testing and experimentation. That means a lot of asset creation. It means a lot of slight variance on the same assets, then localized into a ton of different languages. That was a very, very costly process a few years ago. But in helping our central service teams, like creative services, understand what we're trying to accomplish, that enabled them to go find new tools and technologies technology that sped us up. So we use a tool called StoryTech that enables us to take one concept and then through the power of AI to create a wide range of variants. And then through the power of machine learning to deploy those in game, see which ones work and which ones resonate, scale those up, and then get away from the ones that don't. So, again, it's structural, it's operating model, and then it's just a dedication to being nimble and executing with excellence.
I love that. And Kristen?
Yeah, I mean, I want to build on what you just said. For me, sometimes the lens through which you look at things can be really powerful. And so my first job when I started at ThredUp was helping the marketing organization understand why it's so critical to work with our data science and data engineering teams, and helping them understand how and what kind of relationship that they should have. Just setting that framework and that foundation. And luckily, we have an incredible data science and data engineering team who's extremely scrappy, is extremely innovative, and they look for partners who are extremely scrappy and innovative. I think we were one of the first few customers of Looker, for example. And so that's the kind of rigor that they bring to the organization. And I feel like what we do is we bring them human problems and they bring us technology solutions. And so we're meeting with them on a weekly basis. And that's not always what you hear from marketing organizations. Like, we kind of treat them as an extension of our team. For example, one of the things that they recently helped us do was launch product recommendations in our shopping email. So we are now sending customers emails with, hey, you probably will like these 6 brands, these 20 items based on your past shopping behavior, and really laying the groundwork for us to do more agentic one-to-one communication with our customers. And that only happened because we had such a collaborative relationship together. In fact, they're sitting right here, so thanks, guys. So yeah, that's, I would say, just making sure that you have that relationship and the doors open. And also, celebrating the data science and data engineering contributions and helping them see that the impact is real in your revenue. And so it should be very bi-directional and go both ways.
In the last topic I want to talk about, I want to have you guys share a little bit about your journey, some of the lessons learned. If you could go back in time and talk to the former self a year, 2, 3, 4 years ago, what are the things that you would tell yourself in that journey of trying to get to personalization at scale? What would you do differently? Maybe what would you do the same? Kristen, let's start with you.
We're going to start with me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I
didn't want it to be me. I'm
oh
glad
my
it was
gosh!
you.
I'm like, Dennis has a great answer. I know. Well, I think this is both backward and forward looking. I think as a modern marketing organization, if you don't have a technical relationship with your data science and data engineering team, that's really, really critical. And especially as I look forward, I think the flexibility and being nimble about how you approach marketing is really critical. When I think about agentic AI and I think about personalization, one of the things that comes to mind is really, before we were campaign managers. And we are, we have a campaign, we make a few hundred static assets and we ship them to our channels and they run for 5 weeks. And if we continue to have that mindset, instead of looking forward and saying, hey, how can we become systems architects? And how do we think about becoming logicians in the way we approach marketing? Then we can say, hey, why don't I build a system for this brand that scales? And so every one of our assets can be dynamic and still look like they come from ThredUp. So that's the kind of the mindset that I'm taking into the future, which is how am I dynamic, how am I nimble, and how am I thinking about systems architecture versus being, committed to being a craftsperson.
I love that. Dennis?
Yeah, I would say that I would have hired my data leader earlier because when he came in, it was a revelation to me of all the things that we didn't know. And as somebody who has always considered myself a data savvy product leader, it was really stunning to have somebody point out all of the ways in which we are behind. And I think that led me to this reality that we have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And especially in the gaming space, you said, Bryan, we are organically on the bleeding edge of a lot of innovation in the data, AI, and personalization space. That said, we are on that leading edge with many other companies and many other games. And if we don't stay on the leading edge and push the envelope, we will be passed. And this is a very cutthroat business. Ultimately, no game or franchise is guaranteed perpetual success. And so I think that would be the big thing, is I would have brought in data leadership earlier. That would have enabled us to evolve our data, our tools, our systems much faster. And it also would have enabled us to help our studios understand the technology that we need them to build to harness the data. One of our franchises has its own proprietary back-end tech stack. It's a game that is, very long in the tooth. We're very proud of it as a franchise, but the trouble that comes with that is you release iteration after iteration after iteration, and there's a lot of Band-Aids in there. You peel off one of those Band-Aids, the patient bleeds out. And so, getting a development team to build entirely new tech that will enable you to surface, specific offers and messages to different player segments as opposed to one message for everybody around the globe is huge, but that takes time. And so I think, again, if it all boils down to one word, it's time, and I wish that I would have started much earlier.
I want to give a plug real quick to something you said. You mentioned you didn't know what you didn't know. Earlier in this talk, or I should say earlier in our forum, you saw Dan on stage. Dan was talking about the marketing outcome map. We call these things outcome maps. This is the art of possible, all the things that you could technically do with a platform like Databricks and our ecosystem of tech ISV and solution integrator partners. I highly, highly encourage you guys to go to the expo, go down to the lounges, the industry lounge, the marketing lounge, go find your industry, whether you're in retail or manufacturing or comms, media, and entertainment or public sector, whatever. There's an outcome map with the art of possible on it. Go ask questions. How do I do this use case? How do I do that use case? Or just take a picture of that use case outcome map, because it is incredibly powerful to take it back to the team and say, did you know we could do this? This is something in every conversation I'm having with customers. When we show the outcome map, someone's like, I didn't know that was possible. It's possible. So thank you for reminding me, Dennis. That's a very important part. And Bryce, I'd love to finish with you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think going back into future me telling past individual contributor me, would be not to confuse launch with landing. So this is a huge problem in personalization. Personalization initiatives fail all the time, all the time. The failures are stunning, and they're great learning opportunities, because it's typically not because you chose the wrong algorithm. It's not because your infrastructure is weak. It's really because you're starting to ask algorithms to do things for customers that you actually haven't asked customers that they want done for them, right? So, it happens time and time again. You pull a state-of-the-art model off. You got into a paper. I did this all the time. You're like, yeah, hierarchical recurrent neural nets. Let's go. It's going to be great. You get the first version out. There's some early wins, and then it starts to kind of drip off. You're like, okay, it's okay. I'll choose a different model. And engagement starts to decline. You throw a bunch of money at the problem, and then it really tanks off. And ultimately, what you realize is that the problem wasn't necessarily the model. It's the drift between what consumers want, what the business objective is, and what the technical possibilities are. So my kind of advice back to myself, younger self, and hopefully to everyone else, is to really think about that launch versus landing. So you've got to stick to landing, or the launch is for naught.
I love it. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody on stage. Thank you, panelists, so very much for your time. This is an immensely important conversation. Awesome. And with that, I'd like to welcome our next speaker to the stage. I could not be more excited to welcome Liz Dobbs, our AVP of Marketing Technology here at Databricks, who's going to talk about how our own Databricks journey on Databricks for marketing is being made possible. With that, thank you, Liz.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming and staying for our session. Super excited to talk a little bit about how we have kind of undergone our own data transformation journey as a team, and wanted to shout out, we do have an amazing, small but scrappy team who actually did all of this hard work. So I get to represent them, and very thankful for all of the work both the data team did to bring these opportunities to life, but also our marketers who are actually in the field using these capabilities every day. So most of you probably, if you've been in the data space for a while, are pretty familiar with the 5 V's of big data. It's a little bit of an old school framework, but I think it actually is still very true, because if you don't get the basics right in data, everything breaks. So especially in marketing. And today, the volume, we're swimming in data from every campaign, every click, every channel. That's a new signal that our data platform has to ingest. But the velocity has increased every year monumentally. From the refreshes that used to be acceptable a year ago to 6 months ago to today, it's getting faster and faster and faster. Finally, the variety, the structured data, the unstructured data, batch streaming, we have to build into a platform an ability to ingest all of these things and make sense of it. The veracity, this cannot be said enough. making sure you understand it's accurate. It's never going to be perfect, but we have confidence enough in the directionality of it to make decisions. And finally, the value. It really doesn't matter if we add more data or we pull in this new signal, if at the end of the day, the marketers can actually act on it. But most marketers aren't actually seeing the delicate dance that our data teams are doing to bring all of this to life. They are being asked to do more than they ever have before. They're being asked to predict their customer behavior, optimize the campaigns that are actually still running before they finish, and deliver this Netflix-like experience, which is becoming more and more regular for B2B, not just B2C companies, to bring to market. And finally, do it all at scale, in real time, no big deal. And the truth of the matter is that most teams are not set up for success in this area, and neither were we at Databricks. And to be honest, we've made a lot of progress, but we're not totally there yet. But the expectations are going to keep getting higher, and our marketing teams are actually facing more external headwinds than they have before. Just to kind of bring back to some points that we talked about, we have a 60% increase in our CAC and 30% fewer resources for our marketers to execute with. And by the way, all of the things, the playbooks that they know really well, they're being disrupted with the idea of AI and agents, which are changing how we fundamentally are doing our work. So it's not a question about ambition, it's a question about, is the data foundation that we are giving our marketers flexible enough to deliver the campaigns and the programs they want to bring to market? And so we kind of took a step internally and says, what's holding marketers back today? And for us at Databricks, it ended up being that we had a lot of execution systems. And these execution systems were all training themselves on this data silo framework. And so our data teams were actually spending a lot of their time taking data from one system to another, because every platform held a slice of the truth. And so they were optimizing and making decisions on their slice of truth, not the entire universe. And the data team is working tirelessly to stitch this all together. But by the time the insights arrive, the opportunity is already past for most marketers. The data silos that we saw were multiplying because we wanted to add a new tool, that we wanted to bring this on. Here's another data point that we can ingest. Can we go do that? And what's happening is we were running into this analysis paralysis. We had so much data, we had so many systems. What should we be doing? And a lot of that time, that firefighting was really hampering our innovation, because we were spending so much time making sure that the data was flowing. We weren't really getting an opportunity to take a step back and say, what's next? How do we build something that we haven't been able to build before? And so let's zoom in on the people behind the curtain. These are a real photo of our data team who were kind of trying to juggle all of these balls, maintain this really fragile, delicate ecosystem, because we know the marketers were relying on us to deliver this. But it's not about volume. It's all about the flavors of the data we talked about. All of it needs to be cleaned, mapped, governed, and piped into all these 6 different tools. At the end of the day, run the business in the data team is not just run the business, because when we have a new tool, we have to support integration. There's a new privacy legislation to come out. We have to hit and be compliant with that regulation. And it just, at the end of the day, was not scalable for our team. And so what we decided to do was take a term we like to think of here at Databricks is starting from first principles. What do we want to do? What do we want our data platform to do for us? And so first, we said we needed to really build together this single source of truth. As Rick said, the idea of customer data and campaign data, we really decided that we needed to bring the two together. We needed them to speak one language with one foundation and really be able to build on something that we had confidence was measuring all of the touch points that our marketers cared about. And next, we knew we needed to enable faster decision-making. It didn't always have to be right decision-making, because we know the data is not going to be perfect. We have to take risks. But we needed to be able to empower our marketers to make faster, more confident decisions and better hypotheses. And we couldn't win with a rigid system. So it needed to be something that we could, learn, have an insight, change in the future. And finally, we wanted to do 2 things. First is make sure the architecture we're building was modular, because if we learned anything in the past year, is that the industry and the technology is changing every day. And if we were going to continue to invest in vendor lock-in, that was going to actually keep nipping at our heels as we tried to scale. And then finally, really compliance. It's really not something marketers love to think about because it's so complicated and it changes so much. But as a data team, it's our responsibility to make sure every signal that we're ingesting, every data point we're giving back, is something that reflects someone's individual privacy choices. And if you've been to any Databricks presentation before, the payoff slide should be pretty familiar. But at the end of the day, the lakehouse and using our own product to design a marketing architecture wasn't actually what we set out to do. It was the outcome of kind of all of these decisions and prioritizing how do we bring these together and focusing on designing with the right principles in mind. And that's what's taken us on this awesome journey where we have really tried to evolve from firefighting to growth driving. And within growth driving, these are the 4 things that Dan actually teed up earlier, but we tried 4 kind of areas within marketing that we really wanted to move the needle on. Better personalization, smarter campaigns, really empowering our marketing team, and finally using AI to really accelerate our execution muscle. So now I'm going to jump into kind of 4 quick examples. My colleague Sonia will come up for the last one. So starting with better personalization. So it's really back to that campaigns and customer data. If we bring them together, are we going to see the power of that unlock of that aha moment? And so really what the challenge was is we had a ton of data at marketing, and we could make pretty good hypotheses of how we thought campaigns were going to perform. But the campaigns that we thought were going to perform weren't really consistently yielding the results we wanted them to. So we kind of wanted to make sure, how do we know it's the kind of campaign itself that wasn't underperforming, or are we just not getting the campaign in front of the right people at the right time? And so we needed to figure out, can we make sure that the message is actually getting to those people before saying the campaign isn't working? So we brought on a composable CDP. I guess HighTouch is the vendor of the record today, with HighTouch. And we used that on top of our marketing lakehouse. So what we were able to do is kind of eliminate that fidelity loss we had previously been seeing when it came to bringing a campaign to market, bringing individuals into all those end systems for execution, and really make sure that we were kind of blurring that line between insight and activation. So when we combined all that data, it really started building these segments that we could have a lot of confidence we're actually performing or actually underperforming, which can help change our strategy. And I'd say the beauty of it, I think they've talked about it a couple times, is the speed that our marketers are able to work with now. What used to take us 8 to 12 weeks if we wanted to activate a new segment, a new tag, a new way that we want to go to market, it used to take us 12 weeks to work with IT to bring all of these things together, as well as our own internal systems to map and bring all the data through. Now we can do that in a matter of days. So we've added a lot of agility, and the results speak for themselves. When we're able to do this, we're able to make sure these campaigns are reaching the right audiences at the right time. And we've already seen a 25% increase in our click-through rate, and this is just us getting started. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we are using our data intelligence platform to, back to using the machine learning use cases, how can we better predict what our best kind of customers look like? And so it's a pretty common use case in B2B, which is lead scoring. We had been using a kind of third-party model historically, which is a little bit of a black box, to tell us what the best leads that we were creating in marketing were. And it was a little bit of a narrow view, right? Because they pulled in some CRM fields, maybe a little bit of email data, some web data, some intent data, but they didn't really have the full story. So their model, we kind of had a hypothesis, could never be as good as something we could build ourselves because we'd have a lot more data to train. At Databricks, our model sees everything. We're compliantly allowed to share it. And more signals mean better outcomes. So what we used, again, on our lakehouse, we have everything in there. We used our demographic signals, our behavioral signals, the engagement data, as well as our conversion patterns, and trained it for an outcome, which is what we call our XDRs, so our sales development reps, when they successfully were able to set up a meeting. And so what we were able to do is look at all of the universe of signals and the outcomes and identify these high propensity patterns of behavior. Like when an account clicks a nurture email, attends a webinar, or it's even mentioned in a call rep's notes. What we were able to do is actually see a 4 times more accurate model than we were previously. So it was kind of a no-brainer for us to move off of this kind of black box model towards an in-house build model that has much more performant. But we didn't stop there, because like any good marketing team, you can imagine, wow, that's so great. We love lead scoring. Can we do it for accounts as well? And typically, when you've done this kind of exercise before, it can take months to train your data, pull it together, work with a data scientist. But we had such a good foundation. We'd already done all this work. All we needed to do was slightly tweak it to train it on a different outcome. So we took the same data on engagement and conversion patterns. Those didn't change. But then we just layer in new data. Look at the account signals. Look at groups of people in a buying center versus an individual. And then instead of training it for what an SDR would take as a meeting, show me opportunities. Show me that pipeline that we were generating. And so what we were able to do is actually bring that account scoring to market in 3 months. Because again, we've done all the legwork, all the data's there, it's just slightly tweaking the application of it. And so at the end of the day, we were able to kind of break this black box of scoring for 2 models, both lead scoring and account scoring, but all of it built on this unified single platform powered by that data intelligence layer that comes through these engagements and conversion patterns. Finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about something near and dear to our team's heart, which is how we're empowering our marketers. So first thing we knew is that we were not going to be able to scale in our analytics team if we didn't really focus on transforming our data to really applying this idea of domain expertise. So we knew, like any probably marketing organization, our demand for data and our appetite was way bigger than the resourcing we were giving to our analytics team. The knowledge silos we had were really slowing down kind of insight transfer and our ability to find value in the data we already had. And finally, our regional teams, where we didn't have on-the-ground, people who knew the data well in Australia and Germany, they were not getting the same support that our US team was getting. So what we decided to do is take advantage of being a Databricks and using our own platform. And we built a natural language interface on top of our own platform called AI BI Genie. So her name is Marge, and Marge is our marketing genie. She is trained on all of our external taxonomy, the marketer slang. So the way marketers talk about data, Marge actually knows what they mean behind the scenes, so it can give them the insights in the words and the terminology they're already using every day. And finally, we really wanted to make sure that Marge was set up to be transparent. If anyone's been doing a lot of AI, they know it's not always right. So something really critical in this is our ability to make sure when we were delivering something to market that she would if she was wrong, there was a really clear way that says, tell us we're wrong, and we're committed to making this better and better and better over time. So the same way, we talked about the idea of an MQL, a meeting, Marge knows what all of these things mean. And so what you can now do is a marketer go in and just ask a kind of business context question. How many leads did I get last quarter? What was the cost per lead? And Marge can give that answer right away. There's no more SQL. There's no more waiting for a ticket from an analytics team member. Every marketer from CMO to intern is empowered to get this data at their fingertips. In our marketing team itself, we've seen about 5,000 questions, which have been answered, about 80% faster time to market from our insights perspective. And it's not saying she's perfect. She's not going to get the data right 100% of the time. But we're really excited about the opportunity here, and we're going to continue to innovate on Marge this year and working on bringing together not just this kind of chatbot experience, but also layer in on top of our dashboards. So how can our marketers see our dashboards, find an insight, and then look to Marge to help ask question number 2, question number 3 as they go deeper on that. So finally, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Sonia, who's going to talk about how they're using AI-driven execution in our analyst relations team. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sonia Vargas, and I lead analyst relations at Databricks. I am super excited to tell you about Aria. This is our analyst relations intelligent assistant. One of the most important parts of my jobs is to ensure that Databricks shows up as a leader in analyst reports. So think Gartner Magic Quadrants, Forrester Waves, IDC MarketScapes, etc. It is very challenging to be one of the leaders or to even be evaluated. in order to do that, we have to fill out these super lengthy RFIs. Sometimes it's up to 300-400 questions long. By the time you really fill out the questionnaire, it's 700 pages long. It includes a lot of stakeholders. We have people from product management, from product marketing, from engineering, across the company. There's a lot of manual work, a lot of hours, and of course it all happens, within a very tight deadline, lots of competing priorities, so it's been a real challenge. When Gen AI blew up a couple of years ago, I thought there has to be a better way, right? We have all of this data from previously submitted RFIs. We have these amazing product documents. Like, there has to be a better way to make this happen and to scale the AR program. So what we did is, it started off with a simple RAG model. It was very much like a ChatGPT interface. You ask it a question, it answers it for you. It was a great first solution, but again, with 300 questions, it is challenging to go through every single one and answer it. It was still very time-consuming, involved a lot of people, again. So the real game changer was when we built an agent that was able to, at a click's moment, upload the whole RFI, change completely the format of what it was, because as you can imagine, many of these questionnaires are not the same across the different analyst firms. Some are very simple question answer, others have 12 sub-questions, so it's very challenging. So the first thing that it does, it starts changing the format of the questionnaire, and then it starts reasoning. It's become so intelligent that it reasons on where to pull the data from. Should it pull it from a previously submitted RFI? Should it pull it from a product document that is the most recent data? From any internal knowledge bases? So it's getting smarter and smarter every day, and it's been truly, truly game-changing. For the non-technical persona like myself, and for I know many marketers as well, what was super helpful is to have an actual app where you can upload all of this and make it super easy without having to know what happened behind the scenes, how everything was coded. The impact that it had was tremendous. So we have saved hundreds of hours across the board. We have decreased the number of stakeholders that are involved in filling out these RFIs by a half. Sometimes, and most recently, a couple of weeks ago, we had a single stakeholder who was able to do this. We were able to turn this around within a day. We received a questionnaire, we ran it through ARIA, and we were able to submit it back to the analyst firm the same day that they actually gave us the questionnaire. It's been truly game-changing, and I think really, without sounding too dramatic, has been revolutionary for the profession of analyst relations. And although I can't definitively say that Databricks became leader of leaders because of ARIA, I can tell you for a fact that it was very, very helpful. It saved us a ton of time, and most importantly, it was high accuracy. There was a consistent voice. It was exactly in the format that the analysts expect, and results speak for themselves. So I'm super pumped about this. Next steps, we're currently working on a solution accelerator, which is basically pre-building the code for other people to be able to take advantage of this. So hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll have that for other AR professionals and marketers. And although this was specifically purpose-built for AR professionals, there are so many different scenarios in which a questionnaire could be answered, and this could benefit the sales organization, the marketing organization, anyone who has to do anything with RFI types of tasks. With that, I'm happy to take any questions after the session. Find me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I can tell you a little bit more about how this was built. And I encourage you also to join the session that Liz and Anoop are going to be leading later today at 4:10. Feel free to scan the QR code and sign up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining our first ever Marketing, Data, and AI Leaders Forum.
Absolutely. Just one thing that you guys can help us with. Take a picture of this with your phone, scan this QR code. This is a little interactive fun that we're gonna do. We wanna hear from you, what are the highest priority marketing use cases that you guys are working on in your business? Not only is this going to help us better focus on the content that we can deliver to you guys, but at the same time, we also just wanna know so that we can make sure that we're serving you guys in the best possible way. Please enjoy the rest of Data and AI Summit. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.